Morning, excellent afternoon, and fantastic evening. This is Carla from MindPlore with Carla and Friends, and I'm all excited because I have Raheen Fatima back with me, who I haven't been live with for a few years now, believe it or not. And oh, that's right. You were live with me a Sunday or two ago. I have Krueger here, which you know, and Jeanne, you know. And today we are talking about getting ready for the new year and what the new year may give us. Having said that, Jeanne, you know what I need to do. So can you take over so I can get all of this together? Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. And hello, everybody. I trust we're all having a great holiday season and enjoying family and friends. We're getting ready to kick off a new year. I saw a meme that made me laugh that said, it showed a picture of somebody going, ah, and it said, when you realize that it's 2022, not 2022, as in 2020 also. It was kind of funny. We don't need to relive things, but that brings me up to the couple of quotes that I found that kind of kick us off for this discussion of kicking off the new year. From Anne Frank, who was a wonderful young lady, and we all have read her diary, I hope. So she said, "What a wonderful thought it is that some of the best days of our lives haven't ever happened yet. So keep the hope." And then from a speaker and ethicist, Michael Josephson, he wrote, "Approach the new year with resolve to find the opportunities hidden in each day." So not only do we have hope, but we have determination to find those treasures. And then our great poet, Maya Angelou, wrote, "If you must look back, do it forgivingly. If you must look forward, do so prayerfully. However, the wisest thing you can do is to be present in the present, gratefully." Forward. And I love that because it talks about forgiveness, being prayerful and centered, and being grateful. And one of the great gifts that we have is forgiveness and gratitude. And if we can use that as we start to kick off for the new year, we can start in a place of serenity and peace. That's my wish for 2022. Raheen, how does that sit with you?
That's just very well, actually, because honestly, I do feel like beginnings can be a little scary. You do not know what's to come, but I feel like that is also what is beautiful about beginnings. And again, I didn't read a post. I read a meme that tells my age. I'm 14, so I read some things like I have not quite even processed 2020 yet. And we're like a few days away from 2022. And that's true because see, after 2019, I didn't really go out and whole situation hit. But now it's almost 2022. So it's been 2 years since that's been going on. And I feel like that now that the vaccine is also here, I feel like that's our way sort of forward. And yeah, so a lot has happened in this year for me, also professionally and personally. So I'm really looking forward for the next year.
That's beautiful. And can I say, Carla, you were right. She may be a young lady, and a beautiful young lady at that. She's also wise, way beyond her years.
Yep.
Thank you, Raheen. Kurt, how about you?
Well, my goodness, I'm one of those eternal optimists. And the year's been a crazy year for everything, but when isn't it pretty much crazy? The time is right to be able to look on the bright side of life, because then we start to create more of it and we feel better. And I like feeling better than worse. So I'm one of those people that will always put a smile on my face to lighten up the room. If it doesn't lighten up the room, at least I am feeling better and the blood flows better and I feel healthier. And so it's a give and take, but what is ever lost in nature? I mean, physics proves that, that's for sure. And I love your quotes too. I knew Michael Joseph's, I still do, but I haven't talked to him in a long time.
Kurt, I have a feeling that you've known all the big thinkers. It just seems to me that you've been well connected.
Well, as they say in Arabic, inshallah, as God wills it. God is so gracious to us in the ways that we need. And that's what's beautiful. Simple.
Yeah, I actually believe the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will come.
Uh-huh.
And so when I'm looking at quotes, I'm looking and finding and discovering new people, because I'm trying to find a quote that fits something, but I'm looking for the context, and then I look who said it to see if that makes sense. And so I'm going to look more at what he said, because I really liked his quote. So kicking off the new year, there are rituals that different people do to kind of help clear the air, if you will. One that I did years ago with a community group I belong to. We spent like 15 minutes writing down all the things we wanted to release and let go of, the hurts, the anger, the for lack of a better word, the crises that we perceived, even though most of the time it's not really a crisis, it's just a problem. But we wrote it all down, and then they had a burning bowl. So it's an ancient ritual apparently, and I had never done it before. So they had this burning bowl, and we walked up and put it all in there, took a deep breath, and said, "I release this to the universe." And it really was kind of a freeing activity to clear out the noise in your head, and leave open some space to bring in love and joy that you want to kick off the new year. Are there other things that people can do to set themselves up to let go of the energies that hold us to where we are and open us up to that prosperity and more expansive thinking?
Totally. There's a practice that is called switching. Like many people put a New Year's resolution in, and the New Year's resolution is an important practice when it's continued, but we don't have a way to be able to really make it hold. If we did, the world would be tremendous. So the practice is put your hands up like this. Whenever you think negatively, or you think, oh, I've got to do this, well, you put your hands up like this and say, switch. And you say what it is that you really, really want to do. You want to change this habit. Let's say I want to stop drinking. So I can put my hands up and say, switch when I think about drinking. And then I take my left hand face me, and I'm going to reverse that idea about drinking to a question of why do I like, let's say, mango juice or whatever it is that I would rather drink than alcohol. Because many people, even though they may be Muslim, even sneak drinks and so on. And we want to break that old habit. Now, when we reverse that, that's good. It's changed the flow that we have been accustomed to, and it's letting our mind know that we are actually doing something good and we're in charge. Then you take your right hand at the base of your torso, at the center of your body, and you lift it straight up and say, thank you, I love you. It's a simple practice. Well, that thank you, I love you is thanking the consciousness, the mind that said, I'm taking control of my life. I am actually going to be able to have this New Year's resolution hold because I'm doing this physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual practice called switching. You're loving the new you. So we are so much better. And it just takes a little practice to break those old habits.
So when something happens, you switch it to more of a question. I'm trying to think of the name. There's a guy who wrote a book about affirmations, and he
Yes,
talks.
his name is Noah St. John.
Yeah. So
the book is
switch,
Affirmations.
Yeah. So you switch to more of an affirmation, a question about why you like something else. And then what do you do with the abdomen?
Well, you take your hand at the base of your torso, right near your vital organ down there, and you lift it straight up from there. It's like zipping up your.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my friend Cynthia, when she meditates, she does 3 of these, and she says, "I zip up my aura."
Yeah, well, it does, but if you come back down again, it just lessens it again. It cuts it again. So that's why you take it up above your head and out like the form of a D. The lady Betty Bethards created that idea for me in the 1980s. I think it was 70s or 80s. And you're thanking that the God that is allowing you to be able to change through this, that consciousness. And we're grateful, and gratefulness really works well. And when people see you doing this question, the reason we have a question is because when we say, I'm happy, but you're really not happy, your mind is saying, now you're not really happy, you're just trying to talk me into it, and I'm not going there. So yeah, fighting you. Whereas if you have a question, it's like a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. And God wants to answer your question. So, that's one of those quotes in one of the world scriptures: ask and ye shall receive. So when you ask, you more likely get it. If you don't ask, you don't get nothing, honey.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we do have a very strong ego mind that does question everything that we're trying to do and keeps us safe. And that's one of the things I've learned in the last decade of exploring my own mind and exploring various practices, is that the ego is not trying to hold you back. It's trying to keep you safe based on what the ancient humans needed. We used to have to run away from very large predatory animals, and then I don't know about the rest of the world. I just know the U.S. history was fraught with a lot of violence and a lot of fighting to survive, if you will. And so we have this very strong fight or flight, but it also keeps us safe from trying new things. And one of my practices is to, when I notice that, is to say, that's okay. And kind of in my mind, pat myself on the back and say, that's okay, I'm in charge. Because I want the ego mind to know that it's okay that we go beyond certain boundaries and stretch, because I wouldn't be here today if I didn't stretch a little bit. When the idea of doing video on a regular basis first came at me, I was like, no, I'm better behind the camera. However, it's good to stretch and to allow ourselves to do new things. So when I was reading the Noah St. John information and learning about affirmations, I thought, this is brilliant, because you can say, why is it that this comes so easily to me? Or I'm so amazed at how I live such a prosperous life. And your mind can only say yes, versus saying, who do you think you are? And Raheen, hopefully you're too young to have that voice in your head that keeps saying, who do you think you are? But many of us have it, and we need to make friends with it. And that's one of the things I learned reading a book. I can't remember the name of it right offhand, but it's about integrating the dark side in with the light for light workers. And the whole idea of that was to kind of welcome what we call the dark side, things like anger and frustration, as being part of what makes us whole, And when I talk about it, I tell people, when you're drawing a picture, when you're trying to be an artist, and I say trying because I try regularly, that's why we call it practice. We need to integrate and shade, using darkness, shade something. So if you have a circle and you shade it right, you can make it look like a sphere, 3-dimensional, and that's integrating the darkness. So understanding how our ego mind actually tries to keep us in a spot was very enlightening to me. And I still am working on that, because it's easier to stay in your comfort zone. And I'd like 2022 to be, a year where I step out of my comfort zone more, and in a broader way, in a bigger way, and accept that we've gone through 3 years of what some people have called darkness with the pandemic, but accept that there's a reason. We may never know what the reason is. And as we come back out into what we call the new normal, that life will be great.
We create the new normal. And one of the things about affirmations is that it is asking, well, why not? Or what can we do? And I suggested to Noah, because I do know him a little bit and have communication with him, that he do inclusive affirmations. And inclusive means, instead of why am I so happy, it's why are we so happy? Because when I am happier, other people are happier. When it's all about we're all interconnected in some way. It's like if I go like this and just stop, people pause. They see this as a pause, a time to pause. And the pause is allowing the mind to go somewhere. And where do we go? With a story or whatever. And I'd love to hear how we are communicating with Raheen, because she is so pensive, and I think she has something to say.
Yes, and I was just going to say that we need to include Raheen in this conversation. Raheen, go for it. Hello, are you there?
Just a little delay here.
Maybe she's,
are you there?
well, she's not moving, so she may have difficulty with her connection.
Okay. There she is.
Yeah, sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. So can you hear me? Can you see me? Please tell me you can.
We can't see you moving, though.
I am. Can you guys see me?
We can, but you are not moving, but at least we hear you.
She'll be back.
Yeah.
I'm finishing something up so you guys can continue.
Okay. Here she's back.
Go ahead, my dear. You're moving.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I am.
14 years old, and she knows this technology down pat.
And you've frozen again.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So I hope you guys can hear me, right? You guys are open.
What we might do better is sadly, without your visual, it may get your audible to be clearer. You want to try to put on no screen or something? I'm not sure if that works. But that uses less bandwidth so that your voice could probably come through. But you're frozen now and speaking.
Okay, you guys.
So we'll keep talking and
no, she's back.
Well,
No, she's back. She's coming in again.
Oh,
This
okay.
is gone.
And Carla, is it okay if she comes back without video?
Yeah, it's going to have to be.
go ahead, Raheen. We see you now.
Raheen, are you there? Raheen, just turn off your video.
She has it off now. Go ahead. I hope you're speaking, but we're not hearing
No,
you.
she doesn't have, she's still muted.
So you
Unmute yourself, Raheen, if you can hear me. You can be without.
I can't hear you.
Oh,
excellent.
much better, much better.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I tried leaving and then coming in again, so that helped.
Yeah.
Excellent. Go ahead. Go for it, girl.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so what I wanted to say about what you guys were talking about is pretty nice, and I do like listening. So, and you talked about the pause, and I wanted to mention so I have this app named Blinklist, so it gives me blinks and things to read every day. I can read it or I can listen to it. It's usually extracts from books, or short books. So it was pretty interesting. It's about pauses in life, but like how we need to understand the fact that if you do pause, that your mind cannot just stop thinking, right? We do know that it's natural that after the pause, maybe we just start thinking about, okay, what are we going to do in the pause? What is happening right now? I should go get a bite. And you just start thinking normally, and then perhaps through that process, you get to something important. Like, I feel like that's how I get most of my important realizations. So yeah, and I wanted to mention something else as well. I see a lot of times that both of you guys, Jeannie and Kurt, you mentioned a lot of what you've read, and I feel like it's so cool because I'm like a high schooler and I've not read interesting things like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is the best thing I've read. So I really would want to be as well read as you guys. So please recommend some books. That would be lovely.
I'll send you a list of books as well as videos to see that are short and pithy. And it's basically, I pulled it together in a happiness class that I was teaching at an inner city school. And it was the first class of its kind in Los Angeles Unified School District. And I gathered together short, let's say 5 to 15 or 20-minute videos, one of which had a man with no arms and no legs. I got to meet him. His name is Nick Vujicic. He gives the best anti-bullying talk ever. Magical guy. So and it's called the Butterfly Circus. You can look it up on YouTube. And when you get a chance, see any of his things. And I'll send you the list if you'd like. And anybody else who'd like to can communicate with me and ask for that happiness links, and I will send you it. And you can do that through successsystemsinternational.net. And I have your email so I can directly send it to you, Raheen.
Yeah, amazing. I think I already have the list. And you do mention the Nick, that you meeting him a lot, because I know I've like had like 3-4 sessions with you, and I would love to have another one. But yeah, you always mention about how he leans his head in, and it's always interesting because I know, like, you mentioned it the first time we met. So after that, you mention it all the times, and it just brings me back to our, conversation that we had last before the one that we're having. It's just pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's great. And I'm glad that you want to explore expanding your reading. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is a good one. There are a lot of good novels as well. And you learn in novels as well as in nonfiction books. And one of the things that I like to recommend I hate to sound like I'm talking down to young people, but to kids that I run into, especially when my son was your age, I suggest that they spend 5 minutes, I just say 5 minutes a day, writing something to get it out of your head. So I kind of sideways come into journaling, especially for the young men who are like, I don't write. Yeah, just give 5 minutes to put the stuff that's in your head down on paper. so that you can clear your mind. But we have a lot of wisdom deep inside of ourselves, and we don't often listen to it. We listen to more people outside of ourselves than we do to ourselves. And that's where meditation and journaling and things like that come in. And one of the practices that I like to do, and I'm reminding myself, is to use my non-dominant hand to write in a journal and ask questions with my dominant hand, because you're moving from your left brain to your right brain. And it's amazing the kind of things that you don't normally think about that will come out, because you're basically unleashing that other part of your brain that you don't often allow in a world that believes that logic and practicality are more important than creativity. So I like to spend a little bit of time, and I was just saying to a young lady that's near and dear to my family that she could come over, we'll light a candle and we'll sit for 20 minutes and write together if she needs that. So that's another kind of ritual that you can do to get ready for the next, year, which is a construct that could start any time, actually.
And also in reading, Raheen, it's good to read nonfiction, but it's also very important to read things that are fictional. And a lot of the science fiction has a lot to offer. Like Mary Engelbert's, I can't think of the name right now, about the unicorn, is a wonderful book. Can't think of the names right now. Reading a lot, C.S. Lewis and the Narnia series is another really good one. Reading all of anything, not just always, textbook things, is very important, especially at your age, and it'll help you grow your imagination. And by growing your imagination, you will also be growing your desire to dream and to make life more fun. Because really, it's how we think that creates our life. And when Jeanne mentioned, and I need to keep it short now, Jeanne mentioned about going inside. Yesterday, I interviewed a woman whose life is devoted to helping people change their mindset to a positive mindset. And that woman herself said, you can read and hear and speak about what you hear outside all day, but by going inside, you'll find out you know a lot more, and give yourself credit for that.
I love that. I love that.
It's very important. She was great. I think I sent you the link yesterday. I don't know if you had time to watch it, but I sent it to you, Jeannie.
Okay, I've not, and I will, because that sounds like the kind of wise people I like to have in my mind, in my head. And our friends often have a lot of wisdom, and we don't always hear it. And one of the things that I'm going to be continuing to work on, I've been working on it for a long time, is practicing listening better and allowing that my friends have just as much wisdom as I might have. And they have, oftentimes they're more aligned with our tastes. So they may have books that you might want to read that they found interesting. And then again, you might find that you may not be as interested. My mother worked on a book. I don't recall the name of it, but it was one of those thick things. And she worked on reading it for like 5 years. And when she finally finished it, she handed it to me and said, you might like this. And I thought, it took you 5 years. I'm still working on War and Peace. I'm not sure I wanted to do that. I like books that kind of move me forward with a certain rhythm. But Carla's right. You can learn a lot, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And what you're learning in school is also just as important. I do recall when I was in college having so much to read that I never did get into a novel until we had breaks. And then my mother couldn't get me out of my room when I would go home for breaks because I wanted to read novels. But, you know, getting prepared for the next year, any advice on how to start looking at, I don't want to call them resolutions, because you're right, Kurt, we start with a resolution, but then it fizzles within the first week or so. I like to do life-changing things. It's like a diet. I no longer diet anymore. I change my eating style, you know, and that's made a big difference, because I did read a book, Diets Don't Work. It was a great title, but it's the same with resolutions. You know, I'm not going to eat sugar for 2 months. Yeah, that's not happening. You know, that's just not going to happen. However, if you could say, I'm going to cut down on sugar every day, you have a much higher likelihood, because it becomes a lifestyle change. So I'm interested to hear what Raheen thinks about making, again, I don't want to use resolutions, but making plans and setting goals for the new year. And Kurt, you as well.
Go ahead, Raheen.
Yeah, so honestly, for me, so my goals go like 1 year goal, 5 year goal, 10 year goal, and my whole goal of empowerment, right? So that's how I have. But right now, for next year, I do not have a goal, but I have something very specific. Like I want to do a TEDx event, and I'm already working towards it. I'm talking to people, and I'm thinking about themes and about speakers already. So
that's a goal.
I want to do my own TEDx, because I spoke at a TEDx and I'm speaking at another TEDx in January. So I want to do like my own TEDx. And that's my goal for next year, because putting that together would take long. And I so agree with you, Jeanne, because see, the thing is, all of us are, I mean, I have been there. When you are off of school for New Year's, your homework, your winter break homework, I mean, mine always used to be write a New Year's resolution essay and then turn that in. That used to be my homework since 4th grade, right up till 7th grade. But right now, I feel like, yes, these goals, like I'm going to eat more healthy. I'm going to do this, and I'm also going to do this, and then I'm going to get on this diet, and I'm going to lose weight as well. You know, okay, let's not say within a week, but let's say tops month, and it's gone. You're like, you know what? Later. You keep on pushing it, and then with me is like, okay, I'm gonna push it to like my birthday month. I'm gonna push it to August. No. I'm gonna push it on December. You know what? I'm just gonna skip it next year. So these sort of things
You've met
happen,
me.
but so yeah, I like to not call it resolutions, but have a goal. One goal for the year, and then you can have one goal for every 3 months, or one goal for every 2 months, and then you can have small goals and then work towards them. Because when you achieve them, or you reach that milestone, you just feel so happy. Like I just start feeling happy. So I feel like that's very nice for me to think, not to plan or manipulate a next happy year, but just to look forward to achieving not only the milestones, but also failing a couple of times and learning from it, and be happy and humble.
But
Great.
also looking forward takes us away from being in the present moment. So although we accept that, okay, I want to do this, I'm not saying give up goals, but also realize that everything that you are doing now is helping you grow to the next moment. And that you may not be there yet, but every step is taking you on that road and that path.
It's like reading the.
I mean, I agree with you, because
Oh no.
No, she's there.
Speak up, girl.
Come on, we're waiting.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry,
Yes.
Kurt started speaking, then he started breaking up. So, yeah, no, I actually wanted to say, so I don't know if I told, if anybody here knows this, it's probably Carla, but I used to have this huge problem of staying in the moment. So I couldn't, and this is me since I remember like I was 6, and I remember that I had this, and then I was, 11 when I started working professionally. This eventually, just faded away, and I learned more to be in the moment after a lot of different things that I regretted not experiencing at the moment. Um, but honestly, I know I've experienced it, and it's important to be in the moment. Take a moment to look forward to something, but coming back to the present is very important. And I still haven't got my way around it. So, quite yet, not like expert level advice here, but guys, live in the moment. Trust me, you don't want to keep looking forward to the next and the next and the next thing, and that's just gonna go on.
But there's nothing, we don't arrive because we're always striving that way. So to say that you are not an expert, you are an expert right now, where you are and how you are. It's how you're thinking about yourself that keeps you from being an expert. What you give out now and what you share is your expert knowledge at this point in time.
The beauty of that,
for everyone.
the beauty of that is that you are an expert for some people. It's like everybody is like a news station, a radio station or TV station. You have this broadcast, and your broadcast, the people who you touch, who hear you or who have heard people talk about you, your influence goes to those people, whereas my influence doesn't go there, only through you. And there's where the 3 degrees of separation come. We are actually touching everybody. Some of them are what you might call weak connections, and nothing is weak in nature. And some are so-called stronger connections. And the stronger connections are what we have in regard to we've worked together, we've had good times together, and so on. And we basically get to learn from each other because we learn to listen and we learn to be able to be so much more than we've ever thought we were, just by letting go of those thoughts of, I'm not so good, or who am I to say? I'm communicating with some incredible people around the world, and some of them are as young as you, and some are 94,000 years old like me. So.
Oh, I thought you were only 93,000 years old.
That was, I just have to, you
were rounding up?
Some people say I look young for my age, so.
I'm not sure there's age in wisdom. I think wisdom stays in the world and we learn how to tap into it. And we do that through meditation and journaling and listening. I used to teach a class for young people at a church that I belong to. And I used to say to them, praying is when we're talking to God. Meditation is when we're listening.
Yeah.
And they would look at me like, does he talk to you? And I would have to explain that it's more about listening to the very inner voice that we barely ever hear, because there's so much noise around us. And I know that oftentimes when I go into a meditation, I don't know if this happens for you, Raheen, but I go into a meditation and 20 minutes later, I hear myself snoring. So I must be tired. But as I go into it, there is that moment where I am hearing something and I'm relaxing and I'm open. So my very first meditation coach told me when I said, I get into this relaxed space and then I find myself taking a nap. And she said, well, obviously you are tired. So allow yourself to rest, because I was feeling pretty guilty. And I think one of the things that we try to do is always be perfect. And I saw a meme that I loved and I should recreate it. It's like, I rejoice in my imperfections. You know, because if we were all perfect, life would be boring. You know, we wouldn't learn, for one thing, and we'd all be the same. So as we get ready for the next year, I'd like to rejoice in my imperfections and allow them. You know, the one thing I can tell you, I have a 2-year-old grandson, and he's at that cusp of learning to speak. In other words, he can make a long string of sounds, and you think it's a couple of sentences in his mind. I would love to be able to interpret what's in his mind, but he thinks he's speaking and we have no idea. So I just respond like he's told me some great story, you know, and he'll throw a little temper tantrum in the moment. And the minute he's distracted, he's back up, he's smiling, and he's moving away. And there's something to learn in that. You know, he's not the perfect little boy, because he's actually showing us that he's human, and he's communicating when he throws that little temper tantrum, and then he's back in the moment and he's smiling, and it's like all is forgiven. He's hugging and he's having a good time. That is so not what adults do. You know, we hold on to things, and that's one of my goals, is to learn to let go, so that I'm not holding on to things and I can move forward.
However, if you remember to breathe, you connect with that inner source that allows you to let go almost immediately. So it's reminding us to get back to who we are by taking a deep breath, by connecting with that which keeps us alive from the moment we're born to the moment we die. That's the consciousness. That's our essence.
And that's a great, simple explanation. Thank you.
Right.
You mentioned
and
about,
it's easier said than done. And I know that.
you know, you mentioned about falling asleep, and I've taught meditation of all kinds since the 1970s. And meditation calms that mind, whether it's through the breath or through a mantra or through the different practices of mindfulness and so on. Now, what is sleep? It's calming your mind down to go to sleep. When your mind calms down, you can go into sleep. It's like what they call in India yoga nidra, which means a yogic sleep. So it's a deeper sleep than normal, because you got into it using your mantra or doing your meditation practice. It's a really good practice to go to sleep, to be able to possibly even dream the impossible dream that night, but you can also then make it possible because you've had that dream. We're always given inspiration. Think of the words in the English language, at least: inspiration, intellect, enthusiasm, and all that comes from within. And we don't always clue into it because we have all this, we've been told to think about this. What are you doing? You're gazing out the window? You're out in outer space? Be here now. Be in my classroom. Pay attention. And then you ask them, how do I pay attention? They've never taught you how to pay attention, but they tell you to. I teach people how to concentrate, how to pay attention. And we did that in a physical education class and all kinds of different classes. I've taught teachers how to do this. Why haven't they been taught that in education classes? It's crazy what we think we got to do. We get to actually go to the source of learning. And that source is inside us. And we can learn anything when we don't have the mukhis, as they say in an African language.
Raheen, if you needed to concentrate on something and pay attention, what is it that you do?
Honestly, I have a lot of ways of doing things. But I would actually now how I do it is that I just take a pause. And I'm talking to the young people here. Um, See, I feel pauses are, like they have to be pauses. Like you don't, no AirPods, nothing connected. You kind of have to disconnect yourself from the sound or any other distractions, like scrolling through Instagram while taking a pause is not a pause. Just putting that out there. I would want to take a pause, breathe in, breathe out, just feel myself, remind myself I'm awesome, and then go back to the task. And that's literally how my break looks like. But before the pause, I would do some Instagram scrolling, if to be very honest.
Yeah, we all have a way of being distractible. And just the amount of information that's thrown at us every day, just with social media alone, is amazing. So I like that you talking about, taking out the ear pods and disconnecting just for a moment. And sometimes I know that I sit at the end of the day, I don't turn the TV on when I get home. My dogs are in my lap and I'm trying to pay attention to them and calm them down because they're all over me. The unconditional love of a puppy is amazing. But that, 5-10 minutes of no electronics going is very relaxing. I'll just use the word relaxing because, you get in the car and you've got a radio playing or music playing. You go to work and there's noise everywhere. You go into a store, they've got music playing. And I do find myself singing to the music as I'm going around the grocery store because it's now, it's the oldies and goodies, but it's the songs I grew up on. I used to revel in embarrassing my son singing those songs in the grocery store. But you get home and you have just that quiet for 5 minutes. It's amazing. And that allows your mind to collect so that you can thoughtfully and deliberately do the next thing. And I find that when I'm speaking to somebody who doesn't have English as their first language, English is their second language, I watch their lips and that keeps me focused on what they're saying because I have to kind of get into the rhythm of their accent. So where my eyes are is one of the things that I've learned to help me stay focused.
In a PE class, this is with 70 students outside, and we have them at the start of the class, we have them lined up in their teams or pods, and of 5 or 6 or so. And when we ask them, we teach them active listening skills. And what that looks like is to have your shoulders squared to the speaker, eyes on the speaker, and mouth closed. That's what we get to see. We don't know where their mind is, of course. They could be off in Never Neverland in the book they just read, or the whatever happened, changing in the locker room. But we do know that they're looking at us. And there's other things that we can do that bring our attention to more focus. But that at least is a start. And we have starts and stops, and we have the pause that refreshes. And everybody needs a pause. Like, that's why we have breaks in school, to be able to get outdoors, to refresh ourselves there with Mother Nature. And when we do it with Mother Nature, we can learn a lot. Nature is an incredible teacher. And biomimicry, this learning nature's ways, allows us to thrive. Just imagine, we used to think competition was the most important thing, the good old American way with capitalism. And look at what it's done to the planet. When we have collaboration, which is what Darwin literally found out later in his life, that was the top, that the cooperation and collaboration worked better than just simple competition. And this is what we're learning from Mother Nature. So it's a great, great gift. And I put in the YouTube 3 sources of books by women indigenous women, women who have learned from Mother Nature, one turns horrible places that the oil companies have just basically destroyed, and she transforms them using Mother Nature's guidance.
Yeah, it's amazing all the things we can learn from each other, and I think that might be a great thing to focus on for the next year, is to look at what are we learning from others and how do we take it the next step. Because I like to call myself a trivial pursuit philosophist. My philosophies which are my beliefs, tend to be about supporting everybody. But if you've ever played Trivial Pursuit or any trivia game and you have a team, Carla might say something, and then that will trigger a thought from me, and then that will get Raheen to say something, and it comes back to me, and then I'll know the answer. Because, this happened whenever it was a sports question. I am not a sports expert, but my brothers would say something, and then I would come up with something. They'd go, "How do you know that?" I was like, just the way that my mind works. And I like that if we allow that, we can work off of each other, and one thought leads to another and somebody else, and we can collaborate to move those forward. That's a beautiful thing, and that would change how we show up in the world, because we show up to work together versus showing up to stake our claim. Yeah, I'm a great believer that no single thing brought us to where we are today. There's 7 billion people, and who knows how many before us, and we all had something to do with what got us to the earth today. Some of it was great, and some of it wasn't perfect. But we can make our life work better when we're willing to share. Raheen, it looks like you're ready to say something. I get that movement there.
I mean, honestly, I feel like it's very interesting as to how conversation happens, because see, I've done more than 500 interviews and sessions. And you know what's so awesome is like each one of them is different. It's like I've always experienced something. I have funny stories, I have terrible stories, and I've got amazing stories, right? So I've got like a mix of all. And when I look back at them, it's just like I never go in with questions. Like I probably never sent any questions for any session. Like, you know what, I'm just gonna come up with it on the spot. And that's the beauty of it. He introduces himself, and sometimes we have a topic, and it's just like, okay, so let's talk about donut economy today. He tells me about it. I ask him about it. I tell something about what I think. About what he told me, right? So we go back and forth. And again, it's Zoom, right? So sometimes we do cut each other out while just sharing our thoughts out loud, just right there in the moment. But I feel like it's beautiful that we as humans can have that sort of collaborative communication. Like we can have a conversation. And so I don't know, somebody oh yeah, Jeanne, you mentioned a baby talking, right? So I see a lot of babies. I know a lot of babies, and it's just like they are at a certain stage that they're not speaking the language, but they're saying something, like making random noises, and literally they're talking like that makes sense. They have like a range of emotions. They show that. Talking back to a child, hearing them is so interesting, because they keep on giving you stuff and you laugh and you smile and you're confused, but it's beautiful.
Well, remember the conversations I had with your brother that were quite amazing.
Oh.
In fact, we were engaged before I even knew it at one point. But,
Did you know that?
What?
Like, I just wanted to say something real quick. So what happened is the night before he even talked to Carla, he tells me that he thinks Carla's beautiful and that he wants to marry her. I'm like, okay, say it to her. He asked to come in the show next day. I was like, he literally said it in, well, in our language, but it translates to, will you marry me? She jokingly said yes because she think that he'd forget because he was 4. But he made me make cards. We even made a Valentine card for Carla, but then a little after Valentine, Carla called it off. She's like, no, we're not getting married.
That's precious.
It was. I have to admit, it was the most precious thing, but I was afraid if I let it go forever, he would really suspect that, we're getting married. And I didn't.
That would have lasted until he was 6.
Yeah.
I think it would have ended by 6. I really thought it was going to end by the next week.
Well, I'm amazed at the memory power of really, of young children. And my son remembers things from when he was 3 or 4. And my nephew, I was taking care of my nephew when he was about 4. And we were watching a movie called Batteries Not Included. And it has these alien, little alien things flying around. And he wasn't taking his nap. And he said he wanted one of those batteries not included things. And I said, well, first you need to take your nap and then we'll go get them. Literally 3 years later, he said, Auntie Jeanne, you lied. You said we could go get the batteries not included. And I had to remember, I totally forgot that we had that incident. He went to sleep. He's 4 years old, and at 7, he's remembering it. So you never really know, Carla, what they retain. But to this day, I mean, he's in his mid-30s. To this day, he still bothers me about not getting him those little flying machines. He says it colored his life for good. And I was like, okay, good. Oh, so if you were to give advice on folks getting prepared to kick off the new year, what would one thing be that you would suggest? Carla, I'm going to kick it to you.
What would I suggest? Take some quiet, some relaxation, and get to know yourself before you make any decisions for the new year. Okay.
Kurt, how about you?
Remember, we need to say this very, very quickly because we are coming to the end.
That's why I thought we should look for the tips.
The thing that came to mind was Jean Houston asked Einstein, what would get her smarter than him? His answer was really, really fascinating. He said, read more fairy tales. What it does is it allows people to create imagination. It allows people to explore that there's no limitations. And also beautiful values. Values are the things that make life worth living. It's not financial, it's values, what we value. So, Raheen.
Raheen, what would you say?
I would recommend for you to perhaps, have fun with, if you even want to plan a little bit of what the year, what you would want the year to have. Again, life never goes as planned. I'm just going to put that out there. Set a theme for goals. Start with the goals, and they look like milestones towards a bigger goal. And I feel like that's amazing because every time you will get to one of them or you'll achieve one of them, you'll feel so happy. In the process, you will learn a lot about yourself, about your goal, about what you're doing. And again, what Kurt said, I'm gonna steal Kurt's answer here, about the value you create. Because this year I had a little girl come up to me and said that you're my inspiration. And as she started a channel, because of me. And it was so beautiful. And she had been seeing me for like 2-3 years. And I don't know, she was like 9 years old. And I had never been prouder of myself and had never had, believe in my goal that it was
Beautiful.
that day when
That's
I met that
beautiful.
girl.
And I would suggest that we ask ourselves a question. And I do this in coaching all the time. I ask the question, we're going to have lunch 1 year from now, and we're celebrating. We're celebrating an accomplishment you made. What was it? And that gets you out of what's happening today and looking into the future. What are you so proud of in the future? I do this in business planning. If I'm getting ready to do a consulting work, I ask them, what did I do? We're celebrating that I accomplished all of our goals for you. What did you do? And so that's a way of helping to define, because unlike I'm that writer, if you give me a blank page, I'm going to go, oh, the world is my oyster. I have no idea where to start. I don't call it writer's block. I call it you don't know where to start. But if you start with a question, your mind wants to answer it. So ask yourself questions. That would be cool.
I have a quick question. Imagine that you are living in the future where everybody in the world and everything in the world experiences peace in everything with peace. And you're the only person alive that has ever experienced something other than peace. How did we get there?
It's a good question. So Carla, I think we've gone past our hour.
Yeah, we did. And it is time to say goodbye. However, I know that I'm supposed to be mentioning things, and it's been a little confusing today. So I'm going to need you to remind me. We are going to be doing the show on YouTube from now on going forward. So please, at least for today and this week, I know that I cannot be on Facebook. So please check YouTube. I've had everyone share the show out using YouTube for that reason alone. Number one. Number two, to keep the show alive and healthy, we actually need some donations at Patreon. And we are asking people to donate. If you donate only $5, we're going to put a hat out, so to speak, and pick a name every Wednesday at the English show. And whoever gets it will get a 30-minute interview with me, coaching session alone for 30 minutes, which is high value. And that will be ongoing, and you will have a chance every Wednesday to be a part of that. Jeanne, did I forget anything?
Just a request, if you do go to our YouTube channel, it's Gigglefest University on YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and comment, because that helps the YouTube algorithm share us out to a broader audience. And that's one of the things that we would like to do. So we ask that you connect with us, we share and comment. And I think that's it.
Okay, with that, we are going to wave goodbye and we will go off air. Thank you, Jeanne. Bye.